The Houston Texans defense dominate as they complete the season sweep of the Colts. How did the Texans create chaos for the struggling Anthony Richardson and more on today's show?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Locked On Texans podcast. I'm credentialed media member and Texans football analyst John Some Sports Guy Hickman, alongside Texans credentialed media member and the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, Brian Big Sarge Bearfield. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer of the show, which is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Today we will be talking about close games for the Houston Texans. Not a problem. The offense, the good, the bad, and the green ugly. But we open up today's show looking at the dominating defense that led to a big win. Sarge, the Texans defense created 5 sacks, forced 22 incompletions, 10 pass deflections, pressured Anthony Richardson on 24 of 40 of his dropbacks and nearly 10 QB hits. What allowed the Houston Texans to dominate against the Colts defensively?
John, when you have two dominating, destructive forces coming at you in the form of Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, they bring a lot of pressure. There's a lot of speed, especially coming from Will Anderson Jr. Danielle Hunter, his arms are so long and his hands are so strong that he's reaching out and he's trying to grab you. If he can't get to you, he's definitely trying to reach out and grab you. So, John, when you have that amount of force and pressure coming at you all at once, and then you try to step up, and then you run into Danico Autry. You run into Tim Settle Jr. You run into Foley Fatukasi. You run into Khalil Davis. What the Houston Texans have done, and the smart thing that head coach D'Amico Ryans did was go out and get defensive line coach Rod Wright. And Rod is one of the ones that has been coaching them up since day one. And I spoke with Danielle Hunter after the game, and he said that we take a lot of pride. That defensive line takes a lot of pride in being able to be on the field, be productive, and do what they need to do. And, you know, let's just call it what it is. Basically, this is Anthony Richardson's rookie season. I mean, he played in, 4 games last year, got a chance to play a couple this year, was out for a couple of games. And so he's still learning, and I'm not trying to give him a pass, but it's hard to learn when you're going up against a defense like the Houston Texans, especially that defensive line. We've seen it happen with Caleb Williams. We've seen it for the Chicago Bears. We've seen it happen with Drake May, rookie from the New England Patriots, and now we're watching it with Anthony Richardson. And so what that defense has been able to do, John, when you get that front four moving like that, then you can afford to be without Christian Harris for a while. You can afford not to have Henry To'oTo'o. You can afford not to have Azeez Al-Shaair in games like this. Games like this you can afford because that defensive front four is moving at such a fast and rapid and destructive pace that they're trying to destroy anything and everything in front of them, John. And I know there was a couple of missed tackles on the run play by Jonathan Taylor, but at the end of the day, as long as you got Will Hunter, look, it's almost like it is one person, Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter coming at you like that. Amazing. And John, listen, I'm not going to take your guy because there's one guy I know in particular you want to talking about how long he didn't have dreads. Anyway, there's one person I know you want to talk about, but I have to shout out somebody that you brought up on this show, I think 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks, and then last week, and now this week he just goes out and he makes another play. Jalen Petrie
continues to ball out.
Jalen Petrie forced a turnover last week against the Green Bay Packers by deflecting the ball into the air when Neville Hewitt got his first interception. And then this week, he forced Anthony Richardson into, John, it was almost basically the same type of defense, the same type of defensive look where it looks like Jalen is completely out of the play. Then all of a sudden he's there. And that's why you put him at that position because he can play that hybrid nickel slot position, that hybrid linebacker position. He knows he has the awareness. Now, I mean, he did get beat for a long touchdown pass, and that went into a lot of Anthony Richardson's yards. But by the same token, John, I know that you have some stats for us when it comes to that defense that played license, that swarm mentality that D'Amico Ryans want.
Absolutely. And I want to say that this defense played so well, Anthony Richardson was just tired. He had to take himself out the catch. But to your point, and I want to give a lot of credit to D'Amico Ryans, because I asked him about how did this game plan throughout the week, how did they create this game plan to disrupt the Colts quarterback, Anthony Richardson. He said, we really got to give a lot of credit to our D-line, credit for them and how they rushed together, got 5 sacks. And he understood that Anthony Richardson wasn't necessarily sacked a lot before coming into this game, whether that's due to the coach playing, the offensive line playing well and Anthony Richardson being able to use his legs. But they were able to get him down 5 times. And he said credit goes to the D-line, the way that they got up after Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Tim Settle Jr., everybody that was in on the action applying pressure on the quarterback. So absolutely, it all started with the front four, for the Houston Texans defense. But I also think that, that front four for the Texans defense, especially in that first half, allow for this Texans defense to go out there and hold the Colts offense to 5 first downs in the first half. Only 81 passing yards, only 46 rushing yards. 5 players combined for 9 targets, but got 0 catches for the Indianapolis Colts. And you look at Kamari Lassiter coming back, right? Lassiter played, I think, phenomenal for the Houston Texans.
Yes.
You nitpick his game a little bit, but there's a big difference from when Kamari Lassiter is on that on that court, on that field. But he was balling, though. He was hooping. But when he was on that field compared to a D'Angelo Ross, right, there's a big difference. And yes, I'm going to give some credit. And we got to get the papers going, the apology form going to Eric Murray. 3 pass deflections. Did a very good job, not only Eric Murray, but I think the defensive secondary altogether, but did a very good job of making sure the ball stayed in front of them.
That way, John, instead of one play, though.
And even on that play, I think that was, you pointed it out to me. You look at the wide receiver, Josh Downs ran a pick route, a deep pick route, it looks like. But you got Kamari Lassiter and Jalen Petrie. They ran into one another. You would hope that Kalen Bullock, the rookie, followed where the open field was going to be, but he didn't, and he made a rookie mistake. But if you take away that big play, the Colts offense struggled for 4 quarters. They were never able to get anything going, and I gave you guys some numbers. 22 incompletions. That's due to, hey, we got guys down the field that we can trust. And if they got beat once again, then the ball was in front of them and they were able to make a play on the ball. So I think for 4 quarters, we saw the Houston Texans probably play their best game of the season. We look at Chicago as one of those moments. I think you can look at the New England Patriot game. Though the Patriots scored 21 points, that was still a game where I thought defensively they played well. But Sunday, they didn't allow Anthony Richardson to beat them or have a chance in the game. The Texans stuck around, allowed the Colts to stick around because of what? Offensively, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not defensively, but offensively. So when we come back, more Locked On Texans, we're going to talk about how the Houston Texans offense really allowed this Colts team to stick around and how they really had a difficult time with putting points on the board. But this is also a great opportunity to talk to you about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really looking out for all of you small business owners out there. You want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, then you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has all of the tools you need to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They continue to help you hire professionals like a professional, better than anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a new job but may be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of the LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many different hats and may not have the time to hire or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding new ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/linkedin.com. That is linkedin.com/locked on NFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And also, Locked On Texas listeners and viewers, if you want to make some of these football games or basketball games a little bit more exciting, Prize Picks is the way to go. The only place you can get real sports action with real money combining together to bring real happiness. Right now, with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. The best part about Prize Picks, let's just say you're a novice. You don't know what to pick more or less on. Well, Prize Picks community is the best place to go where you can check out some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community, like Joe Budden, like Drewski, see what they're betting more or less on, and fall in line with them. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks now offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. They're making it easy for y'all, man. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive your $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Really quick, Sarge, we're going to talk about the offense, right?
Yep.
But defensively, I mean, we shouted out Eric Murray. We shouted out Jalen Petrie, right? We shouted out the front four, and that front four played amazing for the Houston Texans.
Yep.
But you got to give, again, credit to some of those guys that, hey, are not starters.
Yep.
Right. And even when we look at Eric Murray, look at some of those guys that are not necessarily projected to play in the snaps that they've been playing in the last 2 weeks, specifically against the Indianapolis Colts, and the discipline of that defense. Heading into that game, I thought one thing the Texans defense needed to do was to make sure that they're disciplined, because we know Anthony Richardson ain't the best of quarterbacks, right? He's in a rookie type of situation, and he has struggled heavily. But the best version of Anthony Richardson has been when that Colts offense utilizes an RPO. 17 to 27 going into the game, 62.96% completion percentage, 331 yards, 2 TDs, only 1 interception, 12 first downs, and a passer rating of nearly 115. You got to be disciplined to take away some of those shots. They didn't get beat a lot outside of that one play, and I think that was miscommunication. And defensively, they made sure that they were where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there. Now, offensively, Kenyon Green gets benched, right? Offensively, again, another up and down, stagnant day for the Houston Texans, whether it's play calling or whether that's just the offensive line getting beat. The good, the bad, and the incredibly ugly. Sarge, what were your takeaways from the offense against the Colts?
Well, I will say this. I'm getting John. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, and I'm tired of saying it. That Bobby Slowick and this offense needs to do a better job of doing a better job. John, the sequencing of plays that I seen on Sunday was not up to par, and I get it, and I understand. Yes, okay, you're without Nico. You can't keep using that excuse. You lost Stephon. I understand that. You can't keep using those excuses for when it comes to injuries. I know that things have to change. I know that you have to adapt on the fly. But, John, there were some plays out there today that I was just like, what are we doing? Prime example.
The reverse.
Listen, I'm going to let you talk about the reverse. I'm going to talk about the wide receiver screen on 3rd and 2. Right after Joe Mixon had picked up 6 yards, you run a quick screen to John Mechie, him and Xavier Hutchinson on the right side, flanked out wide. How much did you expect that play to work when you got two guys on the field who hasn't had a lot of snaps in the first 8 games together, on the field together, on the same side? I get it. I understand. You thinking that play can pick up yards, but you're playing against listen, for whatever the Indianapolis Colts offense lacks, that defense is smart enough. That defense is good enough. That defense has been around. Xavier Hutchinson told me on that play that he said those defensive backs are so smart. He said they called out the play before we even ran it. He said, so when I'm trying to get to him to block him, he's already slipped the block because he knows the play. And if you got defenses out there calling out your plays and knowing your plays, that is an offensive coordinator's issue. I get it. We can talk about the line all day, John, and I'm going to leave that up to you to talk about the offensive line. My issue and my problem is the play calling. If you're not going to be productive, if you're not going to get any positive yards, then if you're not going to get any positive yards, then what does it hurt to run Joe Mixon, who runs angry and was starting to get momentum? Like I said, he had just ran off 6 yards. So even if I think that Joe Mixon, if given the time, he doesn't even need a lot of time. Just give him the time to be able to see some small slither of hope. What he said on what he said on last week before the game, he says that a running back should always run in darkness. A running back should run in darkness. He said, because when you run in darkness, as soon as you see light, that's when you know where you can go. That's where you know where you need to be. And so for the most part, he says, I'm running, it's dark. I see some light, and that's where I'm going to be. And so you're going to run a wide receiver. You're running a wide receiver screen to a player who hasn't had a lot of snaps on the field with another player who hasn't had a lot of snaps on the field, and you're running them together. The continuity of what Bobby is doing, and what I mean by continuity is the play calling, the sequencing that he's doing is off.
Yeah.
And he has to fix it, John.
Yeah, and I also had an opportunity to ask CJ, listen, man, what were some of the positives that this team can build on going into not only Thursday matchup, but for the rest of the season? And I think what he said really mirrors the first half of this year. Stay aggressive, get 7, and we can't settle for 3 as much as the Houston Texans have. There's been times throughout the year in this Colts game where the Texans are in prime scoring position, not for 3, but for 7.
Yes.
And it seems like when they get up down there in those moments in the red zone or in the positive side of the field, the sequencing of plays gets thrown out. Now,
well, John, hold on, John. Hold on. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I just got a question.
I may have an answer.
Do you think Bobby's built for pressure? Because inside that red zone, it gets tight.
It gets tight.
It ain't an open field anymore. It gets tight. Those defenses get tight. And now they know that they have a certain amount of space that they're working within. And if you can't call plays, if you can't design plays within that small window to be able to beat that defense, then that's a you problem. You should be able to look on the field. You should be able to look on the field and your personnel and say, okay, this is how I can beat that with 2 big tight ends.
And by the way, I thought that he did do a good job, not necessarily in the red zone, but did a good job of utilizing the tight end group for the Houston Texans. That was one thing that I thought, hey, listen, the Colts right now are allowing the receptions and the yards to tight ends this year. So we need to see a good bunch and mixture with Dalton Schultz and Cade Stover being a part of that offense. Sarge, you talking about the bad, I'm going to talk about the ugly. There's no way around it. I'm going to say this, and it may be too early, but I don't care. I think the Houston Texans need 3 new starting offensive linemen next year.
3?
I think they need 3 new offensive linemen next year.
What 3?
You pick them in the middle, left guard, center, right guard. You pick how you want to go about it, and you move on. But what we saw from Kenyon Green today, listen, I know we love him a lot. He's from the city. He's done a very good job of bouncing back from where he was his sophomore year and at one point from his rookie year. But I think Sunday's matchup, specifically in that first half, was the worst performance in his career. And I saw him perform against the Washington Commanders 2 years ago. I think they were the football team at that point.
Yeah.
What I saw from Houston today up front, again, all week, accountability. We got to be better. We got to coaching it. We got to do all of this. We got to respond back. And I said, you know what? I'm going to wait to say what I got to say until I see them respond. And they didn't respond. I thought, first of all, Larry Tunsil had a rough day. We're not going to skip over that. But for Kenyon Green,
Seven
it
quarterback
looks
pressures.
it looks like he's just not there. And I think at this point, he's not going to get there. He's not going to get there. Sarge, you said it. He looks a little bit slimmer than maybe what he should have been. Like he lost too much weight to get his body back. And I said, you know what? I believe it's a technique issue. Whichever the problem is, it's starting to get to CJ because I truly believe at this point, CJ is becoming a little bit gun shy. And now some of those throws that we've been accustomed to seeing him make, he didn't make Sunday because I feel like he didn't believe he had the time to get some of those throws off. There was a lot of moments where I said, the biggest one, probably the two biggest, the Cade Stover over the middle, Stephon Diggs a little bit down the field. Both were completely open. He missed Cade Stover, and he hit, I believe it was Dalton Schultz underneath. When normally he would take their shot to Stephon Diggs, who again was wide open on the sideline, an easy toe drag swag, he would have pulled that in, which is something that Stephon Diggs can do. But I don't know if he feels like he has the time to deliver those big throws with this offensive line in front of him. And when Kenyon Green got benched, what did the Houston Texans do? They went down there and they scored a touchdown. Jared Patterson goes down with an injury, speedy recovery to him, and he got a shot. He got a shot to prove that he should have been started or just be a better opportunity, prove his opportunity was worth it. Then he gets injured. So again, speedy recovery to him.
Yes.
The very next drive, Kenyon Green starts. He gets beat. He gets beat badly. The whole offensive line got beat badly. And now we're seeing the Houston Texans back against the wall, and they're back to the stagnant offense. Now, play calling is an issue, but at some point, the players got to put it together. And I don't think that offensive line put it together. Now, the good, I will say this. Once again, Joe Mixon is Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon has been Joe Mixon when he was in Cincinnati. Joe Mixon is Joe Mixon while he's here in Houston. And that touchdown throw to Tank Dell, I thought was really good because that's a player that I really believe right now he feels like he's being left out, whether that's opportunities or just involvement in the play calling. So to see him get that opportunity, toe tap at the back of the end zone right after that Jalen Petrie interception, I thought that was huge for his confidence. And now I'm looking at this team could possibly be without Stephon Diggs Thursday. It's a short week. They're going to need a lot of Tank Dell. They're going to need more from John Metchie and Xavier Hutchinson. And
Robert Woods.
And Robert Woods.
And Robert Woods.
And the tight end group, who I thought did very good today for Houston. They're going to need more for those guys. So in a way, it's a blessing in disguise to see Tank get involved, right? But to see John Metchie make a big play for the Houston Texans and Xavier Hutchinson get involved. But overall, I don't know if that offensive line we saw in the game would be the offensive line we see start the game Thursday.
Well, John, I want to say this. Yes, Kenyon Green had a bad game. I thought that as time went on in the second half, he improved.
I give you that.
He played a little bit better. One of the real things that I like. One of the things that made me say, okay, this young man gets it. After the game, he held himself accountable in front of the media. He said, I did not play good. I got benched because I wasn't playing good. When I came back in, I started to play a little bit better, but I did not play good today. John, that's what you want from a player. You don't want a player ducking and dodging questions and having an attitude. If he played bad and everybody could see he played bad, then he stood up in front of everybody. And, knowing I know Kenyon's, background, I know his family, and that's exactly what his daddy would have told him. Hey, don't run, because when you do good, you stand there and you talk about it. So if you do bad, you stand there and you take it like a man. So you stand there, you take all the criticism that's coming towards your way because you did not play good. Now, with that being said, let's move Kenyon to the side. Juice played a bad game as well. And look, when you got a second-year player like Juice Scruggs, when you got a third-year player in Kenyon Green, but is second on the field because he sat out his entire second year due to injury. So Juice and Kenyon, I can understand. Shaq Mason, no. No, John, no, I can't understand that. And so, look, yes, if you want to start, replacing the interior of that line, sure. You want to start with Kenyon Green, you can. I'm looking at Shaq Mason, and I like Shaq Mason. Shaq Mason's always been good to the media, but Shaq Mason is one of those ones. He's supposed to be the leader, John. He's supposed to be showing them how to play that interior part of the line. He's supposed to be the one saying, hey, whoa. And I know that the Juice has to make a lot of calls at the center position, but Shaq has to be able to be more vocal and show. He getting beat by the same stunts and blitzes that Kenyon Green getting beat by. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, he's 10 years in the league, right? How many Super Bowls he won with New England?
Few. And Tampa. Let's bring that back before we close out. This is a perfect time to let you guys know that Game Time is looking out for you. If you didn't get a chance to get to the NRG Stadium to witness AJ 80 Day, you missed out on a beautiful moment. However, there's still time this year to make sure you fill up the NRG Stadium, and Game Time is the best way to go. Right now, they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. They filter out all of the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And if you want to see where you're going to be sitting at and view your seat, they got that option as well. Game Time will credit you 110% if you find the same ticket in the same section and row cheaper, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Sarge, I absolutely believe Green, Juice, and Mason should be replaced next year. Mm-hmm. And that's I think Houston got to get some guys in with a certain type of toughness and physicality about themselves. And I think for Mason, he's just a little bit past his age.
Yeah.
Career-wise, great career. He's going to go down as a good football player. But for them to reach the level that they want to reach, especially if Bobby Slowick is continuing to call these plays, I think they got to switch out their center and guard position.
What John, real quickly, I was just going to say this, is that we watched a game last Thursday night between the Minnesota Vikings and the
Rams.
The Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, I don't think there was one first-round pick on that offense for the Rams.
What does the Rams have? Sean McVay.
Sean McVay.
So sometimes it may not be the whole interior offense. Maybe it's the offensive play calling.
And I will say this, Sarge, and we got to talk about how they've been winning a lot of these close games, but there was one moment in the game where, you know what, CJ said, I'm taking everything I can underneath. I'm getting the ball out. And they were able to kind of, pick up 5 yards here, pick up 7 yards there. And that allowed for the Texans offense to kind of contain and negate the defense for the Colts a little bit by just not allowing them to hit their quarterback.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I definitely believe we know that there's a play calling issue. And we talked about, how much will Gerard Johnson start to be featured a little bit more with some of the play calling opportunities. But, for me, I think it's a handful of things. We can't just put 100% blame on one area, but in order for this team to make that playoff run like we feel like they can, they got to get it together, because you can't afford a game like this against the Detroit Lions.
At all.
You can't afford a game like this against the Baltimore Ravens, who lost to the Cleveland Browns Sunday because of an inspired Pastor Winston. But, you can't afford those type of games. But what I will say, because you've been covering this team for a long time, how proud are you that through 8 weeks, the Texans are 6-2, but they're 5-1 in one-score games?
John,
how proud does that make you?
John, I mean, I'm impressed. I don't want to say proud. I'm just going to say I'm impressed. Especially when you have a mixture of so many young players. You got a mixture of so many young players, when you got a mixture of second year play callers, when you have a mixture of second year head coach, and you mix in some of those veterans. I mean, I asked the players that after the games. Well, I asked Will Anderson, I asked Danielle Hunter. I mean, just and Danico Autry, I think as well. You know, about being 6-2 at this point, knowing that you haven't played your best football, and they say any win in the NFL is hard to get, so you take them when you can get them. And so I will say that, John, if you go back and you look at, I think it's the Lovie Smith years right before they hired D'Amico. I think that the Texans were in a lot of games, a lot of close games then as well. And it may have been Cully's, you know, I think it was Lovie Smith's year that they were in a lot of close games, if I'm not mistaken. And they were losing those games. So in order to see them, you know, in order to see excuse me, in order to them to be and get where they want to get, they have to win these close games. And you know, there's nothing wrong with being 5-1 in out of 6 games. And they should be 6-0 because you know, with some play calling, they probably could have scored a touchdown and defeated the or with some play calling, they could have scored a touchdown, or with some play calling, they could have forced the Green Bay Packers to, you know, run more clock or run more of the clock and not be able to have an opportunity to kick that game winning field goal. So, John, you know, as I digress, yes, this is something that the Houston Texans franchise in the past wouldn't have been able to get these type of wins like 3 years prior. They wouldn't be able to get these types of wins, but they're getting them. And like I always say, ugly wins count too.
Ugly wins absolutely count. But you know what, man? This team really has taken on the personality of their head coach and D'Amico Ryans by any means necessary. Don't
Yes.
matter if you played 27% of the defensive snaps last week, the week prior, and now you got to play in over 70.
Yep.
If we put you out on the field, we have an expectation for you to do your job, and we want to see you do it at a high level. And for the most part, you know, guys have been able to do that and respond well to the pressure that they've been getting on the opposite side from some of those other teams. And so I think it does speak volumes that this team is 5-1 in one-score games and 6-2 overall.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Johnson Sports Guy Hickman. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube. And follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Big Sarge!
You can follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter and Big Star Sports with a Z at the end.
GP, are you with me? Oh, yeah, we got more Texans talking. We ain't going nowhere. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.